Greetings. This is Ken Bailey, the middle-aged cartoonist and creator of the comic book superhero, The Mighty Energy Girl. I'm working on a new drawing right now. The drawing will be called or titled, What is a Hero? And basically, Energy Girl is saying to an unseen questioner, a hero is not someone who makes the ultimate final sacrifice by making one big decision as their last act, but rather one who chooses to do the right thing as their next act a billion times over. So, that's the basic thing that's going on here, but I thought I'd let some of you folks watch part of the creation process. Now, this is no great shakes, it's rather some tiny shakes, but it'll show you some of the different tricks we can use with cartooning. As you can see, we started out with just basic shape in pencil. At this point, Energy Girl's entire bottom half is just a rough pencil outline. Her top half is being done in what I call the light inking mode. I use a very fine, super fine, commercially available permanent black ink pen for this. After sketching in the basic shapes and putting in the words, I start doing some general shading using something called cross-hatching. We have Energy Girl's famous shoulder harness here pretty much done with a double cross-hatching where you go firstly one way and then the other. We've used basically straight lines that follow the contours of her hair and just a tad of shading around the side of her face to give it some lighted highlights, and I'm now adding the cross-hatching to the letter E, which covers her left bust. We've done it where we do parallel lines one direction, and I'm now coming in and doing lines at a 90-degree angle. This gives just a little bit more sense of depth. We're going to cover the whole mess with color anyway, but if you were to leave the drawing black and white, this is the way we can give the illusion of color. You can see how the double cross-hatching gives it a slightly darker look. Now, Energy Girl is very muscular, which not only looks great if you're a superwoman, well, I guess it depends on how you feel about having big muscles if you're a woman, but she got over it. Anyway, the point being, it's also helpful to we cartoonists because being muscular means you have a large amount of circular shapes. Your arms, for instance, don't just look like two bent pipes. They look like bent pipes with a bunch of balloons, but don't tell her that. That sounds very uncomplimentary. You may get your face pointed the other direction if you, no, not really. She's really very gentle. Anyway, talking about your hero as though she were real is another either sign of early old age or else it means you're a cartoonist. But getting back to the business here, folks, by using a cross-hatching and a bunch of circular shapes, we can give a sense of depth. Notice how we just added some depth to her shoulder by giving it a round shape and coloring that below it. The idea that the light is coming into the picture this way, the same way as it is on her face. Notice a little shadow back there. We'll do the same thing with this shoulder over here, like that. Give it just a little bit of, now it looks a little three-dimensional. Now her two breasts will get the same treatment. We don't want to do too much because this is not that type of comic book. I try to keep my work PG, even though EG, being PG, is still pretty well endowed. We like to make it available to a general all-points viewing audience. So there, we just a little bit of shadow underneath like that, and then we go down below, and the same with the rib cage. Notice how many round shapes there are, not only in the obvious places, but pretty much every place. This is a half circle right there. The abdomen is a little bit like an hourglass or a figure eight, with the top of the 8 being right there, and we now, part of this will be, of course, concealed under clothing, but we bring in the bottom half of the 8 underneath, kind of like this. And just below where it meets, there's about the halfway line, we want to put in the top of her belt. For those of you that are Energy Girl trivia fans, I know you're out there. I can hear you breathing. Well, or not. Anyway, I'm going to say it anyway, so you're stuck learning it regardless. How does your belt stay on when she doesn't have a belt buckle? The answer is there is a super powerful magnet in the back, which serves two purposes. Number one, it holds her trunks on, and that's a good purpose. Number two, Should anyone else ever discover the uniform when she's not wearing it and try to put it on, the belt buckle, once it engages, is such a powerful magnet that it can only be taken off by someone with super strength. So if you don't got it, it'll be real easy for the police to find who swiped the uniform. They will be the ones running around in a pair of bright red trunks that they can't get off, like ever. Boy, that sounds lame. Well, perhaps, but hey, storytelling is half the fun, and explaining how things work in your mythical universe is an ever-expanding job that you just add layer and layer and layer of pseudo-reality, make it as believable as you can. Okay, we're going to do the double cross-hatching thing again here. Here we go with parallel lines one direction. I just recently discovered a friend who enjoys doing geometric patterns as a stress reliever. Well, I would agree it's great stress relieving. I guess in the comic book business we do a little of that also. It's just we then surround the geometric patterns and weave them into a story. Okay, we got cross-hatching in one direction. Here we go the other way. But I can tell you whatever form of art you enjoy, if you are someone that likes to do art, professional, amateur, beginner, whatever, it can be tremendously relaxing. Both the cross-hatching geometric part is relaxing, and of course, if you've had a tough day watching Energy Girl punch the daylights out of her adversaries or smash their evil robots, that makes you feel pretty good too. And she doesn't do much punching of people. But if you're an evil robot or something that's not alive, let's just say that you tend to leave the adventure in a bag as spare parts. Enough said. Oh, wait a minute, that's copyrighted. Enough said, or I kind of said that, or cool said, or something. I'm not really good at coming up with new catchphrases. That's someone else's job. I'm a writer, not a... Oop, that's copyrighted too. Never mind. Some people think we cartoonists have a great sense of humor, and somehow we're the most clever people on earth until they get to know us, and then they realize that there's a reason why we're in the cartooning business and not the script writing business. Boy, this is a boring video. Well, yeah, I know. But hey, you can always change the channel. Okay, starting to put the word balloons in here. Just their basic shape. We can come by with a ruler later and straighten them out. Today I have the day off from my day job, so there's nothing like starting the morning with a good cup of coffee and a little bit of Energy Girl. For those of you that do not own this character like I do, you can of course insert good cup of coffee and with the project of your choice. But a day without cartooning is a day that ended too soon, if you ask me. Okay, we're about halfway through. Energy Girl's bottom here is still just pencil. She's light inked on the top. I'm going to show you two more things briefly, if I can do it one-handed. My other hand, of course, holding the camera. And then we'll be done, at least for this short little video. And that is, I now grab, the big black pen. Still permanent ink, slightly bigger tip. And I like to around the central character so that she does not disappear into the background. Put a little halo around her. That is about an 1/8 to a 1/16 of an inch of space between her outline and the outline of whatever will be behind her. So we'll do that like thus. Down here as well, you see I already kind of got started with the fine pen. And that's how we look so far. Now we can put some of the color in. Well, I'll blacken in the word balloons very quickly here. And then we'll add some color. The very first Energy Girl comic books were done in just black and white until a wise old friend who was not a cartoonist but knew what he liked when he saw, told me it would really be much better in color. And guess what? He were right. So, color. I have here an enormous box, just like a good old second grader would have, of colors. I'll let you in on a little secret. This cartoonist here is colorblind, so I'm very glad that the maker of these pens puts the name of the color on the side of the pen. So let's add a little color. And then I'll show you something else. Energy Girl gets a new costume design about once a decade, and her current design is yellow and red. So we'll just add some of the yellow. Obviously we're not done with the black and white yet, but that's all right. She normally wears yellow earrings at the same time, but this time she doesn't have them on. And then let's see. It's hard to find a good color that works for flesh for a Caucasian. Do they still call them that? Caucasians? White person? However, sandy tan, or light tan, is a color I use that's passable. It's funny. One of the things every single person on Earth has in common is they all have skin. And their skin all has a color, but finding colors even in the larger pen sets that work for all the basic skin colors, white, black, red, whatever, it's hard to make a good match with colored pens. So for black people, the dark brown is too dark, the light brown is too light, and it's hard to get the details in the face for me. I still have to learn how to draw them well. For Asian people, the yellow is too yellow, and so forth. And for white people, this light tan is not perfect. In fact, sometimes the pen makers put just a tad too much yellow in it. But it'll pass. That's the best we can do right now. So, colored pen makers of the world, when you have your next R&D meeting, how about some colors that work better for skin? Just about every person on Earth will be thankful. I know I will. But anyway, that beats just leaving the page white. Now, by the way, if there are such colors, and I don't know about them yet, never mind. Okay, here we go. Energy Girl has gray hair, believe it or not. She's one of those unusual people. She has for those of you that don't know the story behind her, she's a fully human person who just happened to be born with a very advanced DNA, a more complex DNA that led to more complex cells, so that every single human function of hers functions on a much higher level than for the rest of us. Her blood is oxygenated at a number of times the power ours is. Both kinetic and tensile strength are at a much higher level than ours is. Endurance, you name it. She can't fly or do stuff like that because that's not something we can do. But anything we can do, she can do quite a lot better. And so she has this body that largely is almost indestructible and with tremendous amounts of strength and endurance and stuff, but for some inexplicable reason, her hair turned gray in her 30s. That's all right. She looks quite good with gray hair. Why did you do that? Well, because just about everything else I did, I find out all the other comic book people have already done too. This is one thing I've did that not many of them have done. There are not a whole lot of gray-haired, young-looking superheroes running around out there. Of course, watch your newsstand. I'm sure somebody will do it soon. Anyway, here we go. Maybe that someone will be me. You never know. Boy, you're boring. Well, when you consider that I'm kind of making it up as I go along, at the same time as I'm trying to draw and be my own camera person, we we pay the camera guy and we pay the script guy the same amount as we pay our colorist, our inker, just about everybody on the team here. Okay. Now, you see we have our basic colors in. Now, two things I'd like to show to you. Number one is, again, we showed you how cross-hatching can give you a false sense of depth. That is, this is a flat piece of paper, but notice how the light parallel line inking around the contours of her body there, and even around the edges of her face, give her just a sense of being three-dimensional. One thing we can do to take that to the next step is we take colors that are just a little darker or lighter than what we've already got, complementary colors, colors that are similar, and use them to largely put shadow where the sun don't shine, if you know what I mean. So the yellow uniform lends itself well to orange, which is a color very similar to yellow, but just a little bit darker. And now we will use the orange to kind of outline and shade the yellow shapes. And this gives an even more look of having not just two dimensions, but three, if you ask me.
Why don't you show us your face, Mr. Cartoonist?
Listen, if you could see my face, you'd beg for me to put the camera back on Egirl again. That's, so that's where we'll just keep it. Okay. See the look of depth? Now, the last thing we want to do, obviously we're just finishing part of the picture. Some part of it is still in the pencil stage, as you can see. But the next thing we want to do is to put what we call a wash in the background. What a wash is it's a solid color to fill in areas of too much white. Obviously, we have white where the word balloons are and things like Egirl's belt and whatnot. So we want a color that will be a good contrast to the foreground and yet not draw too much attention to itself. I found that with Egirl's lighter uniform, a dark blue makes a good wash for the background. You notice this is also why we put that halo around, so that the colors of her hair and her clothes and whatnot do not just cause her to disappear into a mush that is one with the background. It separates the foreground character from the background once we put the wash in. That's why the little halo. So we'll just do this just enough so you can get just a feel of what the effect of adding a wash does for your overall picture. Again, if the camera seems shaky or it keeps pointing in the wrong direction and missing the target, remember my cameraman is being paid the same as the inker, the colorist, the scriptwriter. Basically, I'm the only act in town today, and so we just got to go with what we got. But I'll tell you, I remember the days when all cameras could do was take pictures, all telephones could do was make telephone calls. And if you had a camera, you got all of 12 pictures, and you had to turn every little button yourself. And if it had any abilities at all, they were all set by hand when you had to calculate all the f-stops and everything in your head. Believe me, we have come a long way when an old guy can sit here, draw cartoons, and take a movie with sound in full color by pointing a simple snapshot camera at his paper with one hand and drawing with the other. That is nothing short of amazing. And if you believe that a camera can do that, is it that much of a stretch to believe that a woman can be born with such power in each and every cell that she can do the things this gal does? Well, that's why we have storytellers. I know the people in the fictional city of Fairview are awfully glad she can do all those things. Bench press a locomotive. That's about the limit. Run or sprint at about 75 miles an hour if she's really pushing herself and if she ate breakfast that day. Exercise for the better part of a day without even breaking a sweat, etc., etc., etc. Okay, just about to wrap up here. Camera says it's been 20 minutes. Those of you that are not sleeping are probably in desperate need of turning this off and going to get a snack. But the one last thing you want to do, budding cartoonists among you, is add two things. Class, of course, the first thing is your name. If you can get the pen to write. Come on, Mr. Pen. You're on. We're on camera. It's your moment. Well, you're fired. Let's grab another one. Oh, yeah. Okay, here we go. Stand in. Here we go. Yeah, that's better. Oh, boy, that is the world's worst. And then the second thing besides your name is the date, because trust me, you will soon forget. And someday you may wish you had known, especially if you draw as many things as I do. I have thousands and thousands of pictures. Not to mention full comic books. And pretty soon just record keeping becomes a nightmare if you don't take the time to do this. So the name, the date, and for many of us we have been advised to put the place of origin. So there we go. I have found, everyone has their own style of course, but I have found that it also helps to put a little halo around your signature as well. Voila! So, at this point, we are about half finished with this picture. Again, this picture will be called, What is a Hero? But it's given you a taste of seeing it from the very early shapes, the very early start, just pencil lines, to what it will look like when it was done. Ken Bailey and the Mighty Energy Girl bidding you have a good